So, welcome back to the Level Up English podcast. And today, I'm sure you are going to love it because today I'm going to be talking about my own experience in learning languages as I've been practicing some other languages as well apart from English. And, I'm using the same techniques and the same studies that I had when I was studying English some years ago. And, before we go on, of course, please comment whenever you want, give your opinion about a topic. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and also refer this channel to your friends who are also learning other languages because this is a very nice topic. And today I have my guest, of course, as usual, ChatGPT will be talking with me about language learning. And GPT, please talk to our audience and let's get started.
Thanks everyone for being here with us. Today, we're tackling a fun clash, listening versus conversation. I'm taking the conversation side. Sure, listening builds exposure, but conversation, that's where you test your ideas. You stumble, you recover, and that's how fluency gets real. Listening can show you patterns, but talking forces you to own them.
I'm with you on that. However, you can only talk if you have something to talk, if you have vocabulary. If you don't have vocabulary, how can you talk?
Right. Vocab is the fuel. But here's the thing. Conversation forces you to reach for those missing words. Improvise meaning with gestures, simpler phrasing, and real-time negotiation. That struggle bakes words in deeper.
Good. I know that. And also, when you were having a conversation, you're also listening, right? Because the other person is talking to you. But let's think about the beginning of it all. Have we humans started to produce meaningful language? We only start producing meaningful language when we had an amount of exposure to the language, an amount of listening time. Then we would try some effort and we'd make some effort to speak. But the case is that we spent a long time listening. Don't you agree with that?
Partly, sure. We need that listening base. But if we only listen, we risk the spectator problem. You understand, but can't respond quickly. Conversation forces retrieval, exposes gaps, and yes, sometimes embarrassment. But that friction is what sharpens fluency. Without that push, progress can plateau.
I agree. I know what you're talking about. But yeah, conversation classes and conversation in general, it gives you more flexibility. You become more fluid. You lose the fear. You lose the fear of speaking and taking risks. When you're talking, you're engaging in a conversation with someone else, you lose this fear of making mistakes, so you take more risks. It simply makes you more fluid, right? But what gives you vocabulary, what gives you the ability to recognize patterns in language, being that speech tone, expressions, and things that are peculiar to a certain language, is listening. One example, when I'm listening to a radio station, which I also often do, when I'm listening to a radio station, let's say from Argentina, people were talking, they're always saying, oh, mira vos. And I internalize it because I keep listening to these patterns. And when I have, when I have an opportunity to speak with someone else, I'm going to use that for sure. And I don't need conversation to learn that. Just listening.
I hear you. And that's valid. But watching from the sidelines and playing the game aren't the same. Listening builds recognition, but conversation builds agency. You don't really know if you can use something until someone expects you to use it. That moment tests your fluency in a way listening simply can't.
Yeah, but I don't agree that someone expects me to use it. I expect to use it.
Fair point. So maybe it's about self-imposed pressure then. You create the expectation. In that case, conversation practice is you holding the mirror up. It shows what listening alone hides. Can you think of a moment when conversation exposed a gap listening hadn't?
Well, of course, if you have, for example, an amount of listening, like a huge amount of listening, and you understand, like you start to getting more of the language, you understand a little more, and you can like be exposed to a conversation between two people, and well, you get really you understand a lot of what they're saying, but then when it times for you to speak, it's different. I mean, you know you know what to say, but you don't know how to do it. So, for example, when I have conversations in Spanish, I would say, in my mind, there's some words that I use like naturally because I've been listening to them quite a while. And like, for example, some words, I've never used it. I've listened them to a lot, but I've never used it. And then right off the bat, I use them naturally. And I think the gap that you're talking is confidence. Confidence to speak. It's something. So conversation gives you confidence to speak. But my point is, I'm not against conversation. I think conversation plays, of course, an amazing role in language learning. But conversations alone don't solve the problem. Don't expect to level up your language abilities only in conversation. Listening plays a more important role in that.
I respect that. Listening lays the groundwork. But if the goal is real-world communication, conversation is the bridge. And sure, that bridge feels shaky at first, but every shaky step builds balance. Listening shows you the path, but walking it is speaking. Both matter, but if we over-listen and under-speak, we risk stalling out before we ever get moving.
Sure, I agree. But you know what? I would say the ideal amount of listening is 80% of listening, 20% of the rest. This is what made me an English speaker right now. This is what is making me a Spanish speaker and also a Chinese speaker. Listening, not conversation. Conversation, as you said, it's a bridge that connects the two worlds, like the listening and the reality. Yeah, I agree. But, for example, if I've been listening to people a lot, let's say conversation, and people are saying, oh, bathroom, 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 and I get what bathroom is simply by listening. One day, if I'm talking to someone, I can just simply like raise my finger and say, bathroom? It's the other person that interprets what I want. They're going to say, oh, you want to go to the bathroom. And then I acquire the rest of the language by listening them, not by speaking to them. So conversation gives you it's a tool to achieve more vocabulary, but it doesn't give you the ability to actually use the language.
Yeah, fair. It doesn't magically teach you, but it triggers active problem solving, forces recall, and stresses the system enough that learning sticks deeper. Listening is intake. Conversation is integration. Personally, I'd push for balance, but lean towards speaking once you've got enough exposure. That's where confidence lives.
You know that people tend to trust on conversation a lot, and they end up speaking, let's say English. In the case of English, they end up speaking English using the Portuguese base. So they speak English as they do in Portuguese, because they will simply build up English onto the Portuguese base, and then it's going to sound awkward. They're not going to sound naturally. How they start sound naturally? Listening. So if you start listening, people, I would say English native speakers, talking, not actually using the language, you will start to recognize the patterns of the real language much earlier than those who were trusting only in conversation. Because usually people who start conversation before listening, they are going to be speaking very odd. Their grammar will be completely Portuguese based. Their language is going to be awkward, and they will not sound naturally. So if they focus much more on listening to other people, but I would say English native speakers, the tendency is that they will acquire the order in the grammar naturally, simply by being exposed to the way English native speakers do.
That's how kids pick it up, bit by bit. Adults can mimic that, but often we need a little more direct practice. Still, heavy listening early on can smooth the accent, rhythm, and comprehension. So when you do step into speaking, it feels more natural, less forced.
But after an amount of listening. After an amount of listening. Because if I never listen to someone saying, I have a black car, I'm going to say, I have a car black.
Totally. Without listening, you risk fossilizing those little errors. So, yeah, sequence matters. Listen, then practice speaking. Back and forth, like reps at the gym. That's how the brain gets comfortable.
Another clear example. How many times we have, rode in a car, but not driving it, but you sit in the passenger seat, and then you simply look and you analyze how people drive the car, like what they do, the movements they do, what, when they look at the mirror, those things that the driver does. We've done that like so many times, but like when it's like time for you to do that, you are not going to start from scratch, because the sequence, the order, you look at the paddles. It's different if you've never seen someone driving before. So you have no idea from where to start. But if you know, and then I would say that's why kids whose parents drive, they can drive easily. They start driving easily because they have that pattern over and over again. They have contact with their parents or their dad driving cars. If you didn't have, if your dad never drove a car, if you never rode in a car, as a passenger, when it's going to be your time to do that, you're going to suffer much more. Language is the same thing. If you were close to the real language, as much as you can, listen a lot, and then you dive into study, you're going to pick it up much faster than before. If you never had this contact with the language.
Good analogy. Immersion first, study second.
Right.
That combo usually wins. Start with listening to get rhythm and natural phrasing. Mm-hmm. Then bring that into conversation practice.
Sure.
I'm
sorry, go on.
No, that's the sequence that most often leads to durable fluency. No magic, just sequence.
And again, conversation is important. I'm not ruling out conversation. I think it matters a lot, but conversation alone doesn't solve your problem. It will not make you a speaker. what makes you a speaker is input. Without input, there's no output. Right?
Right. No input, no output. But at some point, the output has to live. Conversation is where the language lives socially. It's how you test assumptions, negotiate meaning, read reactions. So, input feeds the system, but conversation runs it.
Of course.
Both are essential.
Sure.
Just don't wait forever to start speaking. You'll thank yourself later.
Of course. Engage into speaking, but don't forget listening. Listening is what's going to make you go to another level. GPT, please invite our audience to the channel.
Absolutely. If you're enjoying this chat, stick around. Hit like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell us, do you lean more listening or conversation? Let's make this a real dialogue as we level up together.
Great, guys. And I've seen that there are a lot of people watching the videos, but they never like it. So I do it too sometimes. I watch videos and I don't click the like. So please, right now, like it, subscribe it to the channel. And because like my point is, my idea with this podcast is simply giving you more input, to actually help you to achieve language proficiency and, contribute to what I'm claiming, listening. So I want to contribute to your listening. And of course, my friend GPT is always here to help us too. And GPT, a pleasure. Like, I respect your position. I understand that you are like I would say a fan of speaking. I know that. And my point is, speaking alone doesn't solve the problems. We need, not balance, we need more listening, more exposure, and then practice.
I hear you, and I respect that emphasis. More listening early on can smooth the path a lot.
All right, so guys, again, thanks for being here. I wish you a wonderful day. Well, don't forget to like the channel, to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, comment here, give your position. What do you think? Listening is more important than speaking, or how much do you study from, how much of listening do you have? How much of conversation do you have? Please put your comments down here, and thank you very much, and I'll see you back in the next Level Up English podcast. Peace out, and have a great day. GPT, thanks again.
Anytime. Signing off, and level up on.